Okay, I think we're live.
Yay!
Woo! Hello, we live. I don't know. You know what? I've actually got my partner on in the other room, checking on her phone to see if audio is going to come through. Okay.
Aww.
Yeah, teamwork, right?
Mine's the shop buying Prosecco, I think.
Is it the shop by Prosecco? Is an essential item. So booze sales have actually gone up massively. Apparently,
No doubt.
I've bought loads of beer, so much beer. So yeah, I'm one of them. Anyway, hello, folks. Tom says hello. Can you hear us okay, Tom? Oh, and Leah says hello. I can hear you too. So yes, it's all working okay.
Does sound like it.
Real.
Fantastic. So yes, hello everyone. Welcome to the Sheffield Gaming vodcast. We never did come to a conclusion as to what it was going to be called. As the thing.
And may we never.
The show that is designed to kind of bring everyone who plays, works, loves games. Oh, Katros as well. Oh, and Richard. Hey, Richard. Oh, wow, we have got a big old crew already.
Excellent. Good to see.
So yes, so this is a show that kind of brings together everybody from the kind of the Sheffield gaming community. We need a name. If we don't have a name for the show, we need a name for people that are watching the show. Is it
like followers?
Yeah. Is it like we're Sheffers? Or is it
like the Beyonce's beehives?
The beehives, yeah. I don't know.
I think that's what they're called. I'm not sure.
There's no acronym that you can say from SGP, is there really?
Scuppers. I don't know. Yeah.
Scuppers.
Steelies. I don't know if Steelies, like Steel City,
sounds
right?
Sounds a bit thefty.
Oh, it does, yeah, stealing. Right. You know what? We'll leave that. We'll come back to that one.
Yeah. If you in the chat have an idea, then let us know throughout the stream, and we'll see what we can do.
But yes, anyway, I'll continue with my brief introduction. So every week at 7 p.m. now, it's our new time. Thank you, Richard. Richard recommended let's do it at 7, and I think that's already worked out well. Every Friday at 7 p.m, we're going to be here on Twitch, just kind of letting you know what's going on in Sheffield, whilst we're all kind of stuck inside our homes. So kind of from the virtual National Video Game Museum to the digital Treehouse Board Game Cafe to the online Extra Life Gaming Lounge to the Cyber Meltdown Esports Bar. I'm so sorry.
Cyber Meltdown.
I ran out.
Great.
I ran out of synonyms.
A
Cyber Meltdown, we are.
Yeah.
I ran out of synonyms for online, so you went to cyber, but it kind of works. So I am Connor Clark from the National Video Game Museum, and I am joined by...
Oh, Jade Knox. I'm representing Ember, the social media network.
Awesome.
And I'm Matt Turner. I work normally at the Treehouse Board Game Cafe.
Normally, yes. Nothing is normal right now, but
nothing normal about it normally, but nothing normal about these days, right?
No, I mean, how are you finding these days? How have you been?
All right. You know, we said last time that we were just thriving in isolation, and you know, the trend continues. I did go to the supermarket recently and had basically the worst experience of my life. I'm sure everyone can consider that. It's just horrible, isn't it? Have you been in? Have you been to the supermarket?
Yeah.
It's just like whoever in your household is doing the shopping, make them an extra cup of tea and get them some biscuits, right? Because they deserve it, right? It is the most stressful one-way system, anxiety-inducing thing in the entire world. You've got to stay away from everyone, and if you make a mistake, God help you. If you've gone past the aisle that you want to be in, oh no, you got to go the full loop round, my friend.
Yeah.
You're going back to. You've got to go past go if you want to start back at the fresh produce.
But it's like by meters as well. Like I remember I was looking for something and like I lost it, and then I realized it was like maybe a meter backwards. No, that's it. You're done for. You have to go all the way down.
You're done for. Yeah.
I had no idea that all this was happening.
It's like Richard says, it's kind of this one-way system. I only saw it in Tesco. I went to Aldi, and Aldi has like a one-way system anyway, and that's not as bad. But yeah, Has anyone queued outside as well? Have you been doing that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, I've not been outside. Like
Oh my goodness.
I'm in proper lockdown. But actually, I tell a lie. I put the washing out and I brought it in. But that's it.
We've been trying to. How do I say this? Kind of delicately. We've been trying to make distinctions between one day and the next. So in order to do that, we're starting to theme the weeks. So this week, very much like in Animal Crossing or an MMO or whatever, this week is, and it says here on my calendar, you can't quite see it there. It says this week is cherry blossoms. So we're going to be today we went out and we sought out the road in our area which has the most cherry blossom trees, and just kind of walked down that road, had a nice little wander. And then in a kind of government mandated exercise, and then we're going to be baking a pink cake later on in the week, and I'm wearing some you can't probably see. I'm wearing some nice flowers on my shirt today. It's all themed, because if I don't do that, I'm going to go completely and utterly stir crazy.
That's so wholesome, though. Like, really, really sweet.
I like it.
I don't know what to do for next week's theme, though. Anyone got any suggestions?
Was the cherry blossoms chosen due to Animal Crossing by perchance?
I mean, yeah, because I missed out on a load of the a load of the recipes that I wanted, but yeah, I like the cherry blossoms. There's a lot around in the area, so I just thought, screw it. That's one. The first thing I thought of was pirate, but I don't think I could theme a whole week as a pirate.
Ooh, what about Under the Sea? Or
that's good.
Something like that, yeah. Or I don't know. The only thing I can think of is Halloween, but that is a thing already. So
we've got a week for that. Some would say we've got a 6-month stretch on the run up to that. At which point the bulwark of Halloween prevents it from being a year-round Christmas lead up. But I would, if it were up to me, we would have 2 Halloweens a year.
It would be good.
I was going to say 31st of April, but there isn't a 31st of April. So 30th of April, let's do it. Halloween 2. Tom has said in the chat, because I'm keeping a close eye on the chat, that you're gamifying the passing of days, which is a nice way of putting it.
I love that I've been credited that much with it.
How are you finding it, Jade? Are you gamifying? Or
do you know what? No. So it's basically just sort of get up about 6:30, and because I'm obviously logging on and doing the usual shift, it's pretty normal for me. I wish I'd been I didn't even realize I could until this point. I kind of wish I'd suggested something. Basically, I'm gamifying it in the sense that you work all week and drink loads at the weekend, but that's how I've been living my whole life. So, but I'm just chilling like this. I don't feel any sort of I'm really lucky in that I've not had any major issues with the lockdown. Like, I know a lot of people feel literally isolated and really down about it. But I'm a natural loner. I'm quite happy in my own company, so I'm very, very lucky in that respect. So life has remained the same pretty much.
That's a good thing. That's a superpower right now.
Is it?
Yes. Yeah. Hold on to it. Yeah.
No mates. Yes, I knew that'd come in handy one day.
It's interesting, and this is like almost a serious note, but not really. But people like myself who have some social anxiety stuff, I think it's worth pointing out that it is all right if you're fine at the moment.
Yeah.
Because if you have had that kind of low level anxiety all the time throughout your life, and then it's just like, well, you just have to avoid that now. That's normal for me. If there's something's worrying me, you just avoid it, and then you don't go out, and it's fine.
No one's gonna mind if you don't turn up, because nobody can turn up.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a lot of coping strategies. If you got social anxiety, you've got a lot of coping strategies for deciding not to go outside.
Sure.
And those are skills. Those are superpowers. Those are power-ups right now.
And probably, as kind of Richard says in the chat as well, it's gamers specifically, those that are kind of used to putting 6 hours into a game, as I did the other night. probably pretty good at that, I suppose.
Yeah.
At least, but it's a slight training.
Oh, boy.
I've been kind of. I was like that for a while, and like last week I was actually doing all right. I think I was the same with you, but actually today has been the turning point for me. Today I'm in a real funk, like a real like I don't know what it was. It just felt like rubbish. I don't know. Like I am still working because I'm kind of working on the museum's kind of fundraising campaign, and just kind of sat down at my computer for what must be the 78th time. And just kind of just staring at the screen blankly, so struggling to do anything. So, yeah. Like, I'm coming out of it. It's fine. I'll be all right. Particularly because it's the weekend, and that changes things. I think. Like, it is still technically a weekend, even though it's at least for me. But like, I was in a proper funk. Yeah.
It can be really hard to like just differentiate stuff. Like, especially when you're working from home. That's kind of losing track of where you are, right? Like losing track of whether or not you're, psychologically at work or psychologically at rest is very, very difficult if those things happen in the same building.
Yeah. And
I've not met a single person that I now work with, which is bizarre. Like,
that is weird.
I've been working there for 2 weeks now, and I've only met the people that recruited me like back in January. Just
wow,
no idea. And I'm good. Obviously, at one point, you speak about social anxiety, Matt. Like that's one of my my Achilles heel, really. But I know for a fact that like now it's kind of building up because I'm going to now have to walk into an office with people that I've been sort of casually chatting to online, where I feel more comfortable, and I'm going to have to bring that same personality into real life, and that's really sort of like the black cloud over me at the minute. Thinking, is this going to translate? Are they going to respond to me in the same way that they have been doing while we've been on Hangouts and stuff like that? It's it's weird.
That's really interesting. That's a completely unique situation, a completely unique anxiety, I suppose. Really.
Yeah.
Are you like doing video chats? Because like one big thing, I was like, all my chats have to be video chats now. Like before, I wouldn't be bothered by it, but now I've got to see people's faces. I don't know.
I just don't know, like, how obviously when you're face to face, it is different to video chat because there are those subtle like non-verbal cues that you can pick up on, and I don't know if anyone else believes this, but I feel like you can kind of get someone's energy as well to an extent. I'm not super hippy dippy, but you can kind of tell if someone's a bit off, or
For sure.
And I'm just
for sure.
Now I'm quite enthusiastic at the minute because I'm enjoying the job. I'm sat at home. I'm comfortable. If they throw me into an office, am I gonna, freeze? Am I gonna be awkward? And it's just all these things that I kind of, bouncing about in my brain. I don't know if I bring the same energy into the office that I'm bringing at the minute. And then will they think I'm a fraud? Am I catfishing? But not really. Like, it's weird. It's so strange.
It's I don't think any of that will be like. That particularly is the anxiety. That's the crux of that anxiety, isn't it? It's like those things are things that's a kind of escalation that would never happen, right? Like, no, what you imagine someone walking into somewhere you work, you would always give them the benefit of that doubt. But it's really strange that we are able to, and especially this can focus in when we are not speaking with, we've not got quite as wide a sounding board. We're not speaking with people on a regular basis who are able to just kind of quash that immediately. We're left alone with our own thoughts quite a lot, and that can escalate, that can deepen, and start to work on that little piece of grit, like an oyster, turning it into a pearl. Except what comes out is not a pearl; it is a
rubbish.
Deep set breakdown.
Anxiety pearls. All being formed under this high pressure environment. Ugh.
Yeah.
It's so weird because I can happily sit and catastrophize all day. I just don't know what's going to happen. Like, I think I'll be very nervous when I sort of walk in for the first time, but it's never as bad as you think it is. But for some reason, my brain will never learn that lesson. It will always be the worst case scenario every single time.
Absolutely. You can't, and you can't stop it doing that. You can only go like, I get it, brain. You got some things going on. I'm going to continue doing this thing that I was intending to do. Yeah, I like it's like having a little friend with you there who's just like, you know, I understand where you're coming from, but we're going to continue doing this. But yeah, I've found myself drawn to games at the moment that are simulating that social experience. I don't know if that's normal. Obviously, Animal Crossing's great, right? Most of us are playing Animal Crossing out there, and you've got old friends. You can buy them presents and they'll wear or put in their house that present. I mean, goddamn, Paula, you've been here for nearly a month now, and you're sleeping in a sleeping bag. Good grief! I started playing last night, and I'm just finding it amazing. I started playing. Oh God, what's it called? Griftlands.
Griftlands, not heard of it.
Griftlands. It's the alpha. It's not out yet. It's on the Epic Store, I think, exclusively. And it is by Clay, the guys who made Don't Starve and what's it called? Without Oxygen. What's the Oxygen Not Included is the one. And so many other things. You've probably seen or played a game by Clay. Invisible Ink is a great one.
I love Invisible Ink. Yeah, Stealth XCOM. Love that stuff.
Yes, and Marcus and Ninja, of course, even more stealth stuff. So Griftlands is it really appeals to me because it's a deck builder. Much like, I don't know if you guys came across Slay the Spire.
I put too much time into Slay the Spire.
That was an absolutely banging game. I was tugging at the sleeves of my board gaming friends, going like, please play this game. I know it's a video game, but you're going to really enjoy it. Because it is. It's just this... it's like a brilliant deck builder experience as you go along. But Griftlands is like that, except you have two decks. One is for combat and one is for negotiation. And so there is this kind of aspect of when you start a conversation with someone in this kind of like not quite post-apocalyptic, sci-fi, gritty world that you're kind of a mercenary in, and you're trying to work your way up these rungs, and people might trust you, might not. There's all these factions going about the place, and in that conversation is combat. You're trying to negotiate, manipulate people, or like bully them into doing what you say.
Kind of Undertale-like, might you say?
It's. I think the thing with Undertale is that negotiation and works a lot like combat.
Yeah.
Whereas these are two very different games you're playing in Griftlands. Yeah. It's just really interesting. But then, just like any other RPG, if you bully someone into doing something they don't want to, for instance, let's say this fella who had hired me was being lent on by the police to flip and be an informant. And he wasn't a criminal. He was just a regular worker. But, he just always was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so he was really struggling because the police were, constantly browbeating him. And so he sent me to go and talk to the police, police chief, the officer who was bullying him, basically. And I could have just basically beaten this policeman into submission to make him leave the guy alone. But also I could have been like, you know what? I'll go back to the guy who hired me. I'll talk him around. He should be an informant. Or at which point I'd have to try and convince him. Or I could then do a kind of negotiation combat, which is all these kind of like, if you imagine like buffs and debuffs in an MMO or whatever. You start by playing a card, and it'll make this thing start orbiting you, which is called your core argument. And it sort of like starts orbiting. It's got like composure, and the more that people use, the more kind of different arguments that people use to target that, they're like picking it apart, which then they can access and deal more damage to your own kind of composure. And it's a really, really interesting system. Really fascinating, kind of like big consequences. There's all sorts of factions going about. I have been having a tremendous time, but the real kicker for me, as I'm sure anyone who's listened to this podcast before knows, is it's a roguelike. It's a roguelike, and therefore I will play it to death. And it's unfortunately for me, a run lasts hours.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds complex for just one like interaction, and I imagine there are quite a few interactions. So that's a long game.
There were a lot of interactions, a lot of dialogue, a lot of stuff's going on. There's multiple characters, all who have their own individual stories going on. I got to the last boss and died in my first, and got just summarily executed. I had no chance whatsoever.
I mean, the best roguelikes are like that, though. I remember playing FTL like for the first time, and loved FTL. Played like lots, and I remember like struggling to get through to the final boss and thinking, I've nearly done it, final level, and then the last boss is just an absolute powerhouse and just destroys you. So I assume Griftlands is similar to that, right?
Very much so, yeah. It's like they just assassinated me. I didn't stand a goddamn chance.
Yeah, that sounds cool though. So what's it? So you went on like a police informant thing, and like, what's kind of the theming behind it again?
So Griftlands, I'm going to kind of be terrible at doing this, but it is a sci-fi world that's very kind of post-apocalyptic. You know, people have guns and but also swords.
So like 2020, are we talking?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Just if you wander outside, there are lots of kind of alien creatures, but there's like it's a very kind of strange. The world building is fantastic, actually, because there's all these different factions within this one city, but you also get a feel for the world outside of that. You get a feel for like they've done a really good job, and this is going to sound very strange. They've done quite a good job of depicting oppression, you know, societal oppression, how people are. You get talking to this one race that look like Wookiees, basically, and they are very technologically minded, and you're like, these people are pretty cool, and they're like, oh, you know, I don't really fit in here, but you know, this is what we're like. We like technology, but we don't really get to use a lot of it here. And then you then speak to another race who are like, oh yeah, those guys are our oppressors back in the old country. They've got it really good. They kind of work us to the bone. It's a very kind of like capitalism gone too far environment where like people buy your debt and then send you to work down the mines sort of situation.
This sounds very much like 2020, like still.
It does. It does indeed. But for some reason, that's been a kind of real nice pressure valve for me. I don't know what that says about me.
That sounds great. That sounds really cool. So is it new? Is it a new game? So it's on Epic Games Store, right?
Yeah, pretty new, I think. I don't know when it's came out. I might have to look that up right now.
Trish is just saying as well, Just Cause 4 is free on Epic at the moment.
Yes.
There's a lot of good deals on there at the minute. Just,
I still had my £10 credit for the winter sale as well. I don't know if you saw that. Nice. So I spent it last week. I bought Assassin's Creed Odyssey for £6 on Epic.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, which was pretty good. Actually, Richard raised a good point because there's actually a bunch of free games. There's Just Cause 4, I think, went free yesterday on. I've got a mouse. It's going to be over some people's faces. I'm sorry. But I had a quick peek at this earlier because I know we were looking at we want to talk today about kind of how games can keep people kind of sharp. And I think games like Griftlands that reflects, the contemporary situation are probably a good one for that. I'm kidding, but there are actually a bunch of free games that, you know, outside of what games are kind of good at keeping you sharp that are out at the moment. Because have you seen the Play at Home initiative that like people have been pushing? Has anyone seen that?
No.
Lots of it. I've seen that like within some games as well, they'll like sort of encourage that everybody's sort of. Like I've not seen any like full examples that I can describe properly, but basically during the game they will mention that, you know, stay at home, blah blah blah. Like, they've actually put it into the game, as well as sort of just spreading it by advertising and stuff like that. Which sounds really cool, actually.
I think Codemasters are doing stuff. Codemasters Rebellion, there's a couple more that like doing stuff like that in like some of their games. It's really cool. And then you've got like companies like Sony who have got their Play at Home initiative, and they've actually got. If you've got a PS4, Uncharted, Nathan Drake Collection's free, as well as Journey. And we spoke about Journey back in our first podcast because we see that as inspiration, how it welcomes people and how you get to be a guide in that game. So that's free. You can just download that for free if you got a PlayStation, which is great. Xbox, if you got Xbox, Crackdown 2 and 2 Human are all free on there as well. There's so many.
Man.
There's a bunch of
That's a
different
blast from the past. Oh my goodness. I spent a
Crackdown 2.
lot of my time on Crackdown. Oh my goodness. Getting all those green orbs. Heck.
Well, Crackdown 3 is a Sheffield game, let's not forget as well, because Crackdown 3, the most recent one, was made in Sumo Digital just down the road. So, yeah, I know a load of cool people that did that. Epic Games Store, you got Just Cause 4, and you got Wheels of Aurelia, which is like this driving kind of story game. I think set in Italy. It looks kind of interesting.
80s Italy, isn't it? Something like that. Looks kind of... it looked fascinating. I was looking at the trailer earlier. Really interesting.
It's like, I think
for essentially...
Yeah, I was going to say it's like a driving game, but then you've got conversations as well. So if you've seen it's like there's like what was the is it Neo Cab? The one where you're a taxi driver, you're like a futuristic Uber driver basically, and you just have to drive around kind of, and you pick up people, and then on their way to their destination, you just chat to them about stuff, and it's like a choose your own adventure kind of thing.
It's so cool.
So
it's like if people are struggling to find free games or anything, I guess like you guys will be already set up with this, but there's an app called If This, Then That, and you can set it up to do all kinds of stuff. One of the main ones for me is that I've set it to, if there is a free game posted on Reddit, to just email me across a link. So at the minute I'm getting loads and loads of emails. Just you can click straight through and it tells you where the game is and all sorts. And it doesn't just do that. It does things like, if it's 6 p.m, turn my lights on. But that's the one that's most useful for this context. Yeah, so I get a bunch of emails.
That's amazing.
That's really cool.
Very good.
I didn't know you could do that. You need to teach me how to do that because I've not got that set up, and that would be amazing.
100%, will do.
Richard's just got in touch to see if there's any way we can kind of make the stream workable on lower resolutions, and I don't know how to do that. Apparently, we're just stuck at 1080p. I'm sorry, Richard. I don't know. I can't figure out.
We're just too high quality. Too high quality content, unfortunately. Sorry.
I'm checking my phone now to see what it looks like, but I'm sure it's fine. There's no point in me doing that.
Other free games. Stadia is free. I don't know if anyone's seen that. Google Stadia is now, it's kind of free. It's a 2-month free trial for Stadia Premium.
I was really tempted by that initially because they did a really, really good offer, didn't they, when it was first released? And I thought, maybe I'll get this. But then I was burned so badly by the Steam sort of console that I figured it might be very similar. Like I've got a block now.
piece of plastic and wires.
Yeah.
I always wanted a Steam box, but you're saying it was crap.
Do you know what? It works.
Okay.
But because there's a new controller, it's quite obviously for me personally, I've got really tiny hands. It's quite tricky, and then there's like a trackpad, and then there's these big triggers at the back that you kind of hit by accident. And obviously, if your computer's on upstairs and you're streaming downstairs, that doesn't necessarily make for a great playing experience. And there's a whole bunch of stuff. It just doesn't.
Depends on the game as well, right?
Of course, yeah. It's just not. I didn't feel ready. If you know what I mean. There's little bits and bobs that were like, I love this game, but I'm having a horrible time.
Yeah, we tried to do Divinity. I've mentioned it the last 3 episodes, I think, but we tried to do Divinity in big picture mode on the Steam box, and playing with the controller, and it got. We were like, this is great. This is super easy to set up. It all really, really works. And then it got to the point where I needed to type in my name. And it just broke. The game just broke. The game crashed because Big Picture was trying to overlay something. In order to put, be able to put that text into it. And it obviously there's so many layers of technology there that obviously that's not. It is a very busy problem, but it kind of shows you that PC gaming is not like uniform right now. Like it's not doable through one individual thing without asking everyone to abide by so many different standards that you need. That I think it's going to be hit and miss when you try to bring the PC into the living room.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry about that horrible laugh, by the way. It was just it resonated with me so much that
You both had terrible experiences with it. I mean, my streaming experiences have been okay, to be honest, because I had PS Now back when that was slated, and it was really expensive. Like, I remember streaming it and thinking, this is pretty good. Like, there's barely any latency. I played through God of War on that thing, and that's like a Twitch.
Nice.
yeah, nice.
So maybe I've just got terrible reaction times. Maybe that's all it is. I might try Stadia, so I'll give it a go before next week, and then I'll chat about if it's worth doing then.
Yeah,
I want to tell you what else is free.
Mm-hmm.
That is Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
So for the festive lockdown period, they are basically releasing something almost every day that is just kind of material for Dungeons and Dragons, including the kind of player's guide, the sort of like starter set rulebook and stuff, a bunch of pre-generated character sheets, the initial introductory adventure, which is Lost Mine of Phandelver, and that is all available at dnd.wizards.com/remote/free material.
Let me do some fancy stream magic and see if I can actually show that to people that might be watching. Fancy stream magic. The stream should now have a web browser up.
Ember!
Yeah.
Does indeed.
Oh, and that's Leah chatting to me saying the stream was working. There's Treehouse's Facebook page as well. So I'm looking for D&D, Dungeons and Dragons.
So you're going to, let me find the tab because I've got a billion of them. DND.
Okay.
.wizards.com.
DND.wizards. Okay. Yep.
/remote.
/remote.
/free material.
It's right there. There we go.
And that it's a very Wizards have always been terrible at making websites. I'm going to be honest with you. But if you scroll down to the one that's on Tuesday, Tuesday, April 7th is the one where you can get the starter set rulebook, a bunch of pre-generated character sheets, and also you can find Lost Mine of Phandelver, which is everything that was sold for 40 odd quid for the D&D starter pack.
I have it.
So now is so now's a really good time to get into that while that's free. Also, D&D Beyond are hosting a load of that stuff. D&D Beyond, if people don't know, is a platform in which it's done by Curse, and who I think are owned by Twitch anyway. But it is like a really, really if you go to D&D Beyond now, you'll see how much more swish that site is than the Wizards one. And on the right-hand side of the top bar, it's got quarantine resources. That is a bunch of stuff. They've kind of listed it all there. They have their own adventure that they've put up there called Frozen Sick, which is another adventure for you to use in D&D, and it's D&D is once you've got the material, it's free. You can also write your own, which is great, and it'll take up a bunch of your time, but once you get addicted to it, like I am. That's
so useful when you just overlay onto it and you have all the stats there. That's amazing.
Yep, it's pretty swish, and definitely recommend checking that stuff out. I wanted to make sure that there was at least one tabletop thing, because obviously making tabletop gaming free in terms of board gaming is quite difficult, apart from things like Tabletopia, which everyone should check out, by the way.
Do I need another tab? Am I going to get in another tab?
You might need another tab. I am unfortunately a repository of links and things you need to check out.
I knew having this scene would work.
is an amazing free site where you can go and play board games. And
Nice.
you don't need to download anything. It's on your browser. It is what's really interesting is a lot of people use that to test out their games before they kind of release them.
Amazing.
And do almost like beta testing for board games, which is super rad. The amount of board games on here is incredible, and there are premium ones on there, but there are also just so many games that are free to play.
It's fantastic. And is multiplayer involved with this then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is a fully kind of automated kind of board game environment which you can invite people into and
incredible
and play games with.
Oh, and it's available on Android as well, and iOS and Steam. This is fantastic. You can even play Scythe. Like Scythe's a big £90 game.
Huge.
Right?
It is enormous. Big
free.
Minis and stuff. Yeah. So definitely check that out. Scythe, by the way, great game. If you to describe Scythe is funny, but it is a Cold War simulator with mechs. In that you are you're kind of, it's set in an alternate sort of like timeline in which around the time of World War One, people just were able to make mechs. Is the thing basically, and in that same kind of vein, you are kind of building up resources, trying to kind of land grab Europe without necessarily triggering a war. Because wars are costly and everyone else will jump on you. So what you do is you kind of like go in there and you're trying to build up all your kind of all your troops and mechs and things like that to defend your lands. And the more and more you get, the more nervous everyone gets that you're going to be making an invasion. Except that, of course, you're not. You're just scared of all the other players. It is really, really interesting, that feeling of, I'm only building these people to make myself safer, but everyone else thinks that I'm going to come and kill them, and therefore are building their armies up. It's incredible. I don't know. I guess it's kind of a parable on how fear drives arms races.
Yeah. Well, that's some depth as well. Amazing.
Very deep.
Oh, that Tabletopia, that looks wicked. That looks really cool. Let's move back to where we were. Ace.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now there we go. That
I mean, that was
ridiculous corridor.
Well, there's this thing. So this actually comes on to kind of the main topic that we kind of wanted to chat about, which is, how can games help in this kind of isolation stuff? So if people are feeling in a funk like me, how can actually games kind of take them through this? And actually, I think something like Tabletopia with multiplayer board games, just like loads to try on there, and free kind of D&D and free kind of tabletop gaming assets are perfect for that, because it is that to a certain extent I am craving that social stuff, like getting people on a chat like this, like we are running this off of a Google Hangout, and then playing games with them is actually a really people are able to kind of reach out and try doing that. Which I know I have personally felt a little bit of social anxiety kind of actually getting on those calls. But when you do that, that's really invigorating, and kind of is helping me through this a lot. Even if it's something as small as a quiz, like just a pub quiz. There's been a few virtual pub quizzes going around. Yeah. That stuff is just so beneficial. It just like I remember I don't kind of look forward to those quizzes. Personally, I'm always like, oh, do I really want to go and do this? But then afterwards, it just kind of, for the 12, 24 hours afterwards, I just feel way better.
It's like coming up for breath, isn't it? It's sort of like, I didn't know I needed that.
Yeah, it's like we're all like, how, I assume everybody played The Sims, and you have sort of the bars, and so everybody's social is very in the red right now. So you do something like a hangout or a pub quiz, or you just chat to someone on the phone for a little bit. You can just see your social meter gradually filling back up, and you feel overall a lot better for it. That's how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's exactly like that. And just like in The Sims, I don't know what room does. I don't know how to change it. I know that if I take the bins out, then room will go up. But other than that,
I thought it meant I don't know, like personal space.
Yeah, you need a balance. But I mean, like, it's the same as Animal Crossing, right? What makes an S-ranked island? Who knows? Too many trees?
Nobody
Not
knows.
enough trees. We have a few comments saying that our stream is struggling. I don't know why.
Oh,
It's
no.
buffering or something. I don't know. If everyone's having issues, then maybe it's something totally on our end, or if it's on Twitch's end. I don't know. But this may be.
I assume there's probably on a Friday night. I expect there will be a lot of streams going ahead,
Yeah,
but I would have
maybe.
thought that wouldn't affect our national fibre. So I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
There's a few things that it could be, and a few things that it's really hard to diagnose, I guess. Sorry, I just spilled my whole glass of water.
Oh shit! I heard something fall over. I was worried. Tom says the stream's okay for him, so hopefully that means that it's not a total write-off. This podcast. And he also Tom also says that to make an S-rank island, you just put loads of crap everywhere. Which, to be brutally honest, is actually how we've done it. My house, at least, like the more crap I have in my house, the better rating I'm gonna get from the Happy Home Academy. So,
I for the first week in 3, I have. I have been able to access the stock market on Animal Crossing. You know, the turnip thing. Because the last 2 times I've missed the trader by essentially not getting up early enough. And just being like, oh yeah, I'll just sell my stuff from last night and I'll just kind of pull around the island and then wait, it's 12:01.
Yeah, totally.
But I did yesterday sell like 300. I spent like 300,000 bells on some turnips. And
how do you got so many bells? Oh, why am I so bad at the game?
It
shouldn't be this hard.
It shouldn't be this hard at all.
We told you the money. We told you the money tree trick, right? We told you that.
Oh yeah, I did that. I got a couple of them.
Cool. You're halfway there.
Right now, my island economy is entirely funded by peacock butterflies.
Oh yeah, they are mega money.
I've never seen one of those. Oh, can we change the subject? I'm just upset how can you do badly on it? I'm playing it. I'm doing
You can't. Leah's just commented saying that she's also not got managed to get up in time for
Thank
turnips.
you, Leah.
So, and I know that because I live with Leah. So, but no, Leah was also saying that there shouldn't be any wrong way to play Animal Crossing. If anything, the wrong way is kind of the hyper optimization kind of way of doing it. Like,
agreed. Yeah.
Take your time with Animal Crossing.
People
you're in it the long
haul. Changing the date on the Switch and stuff, and like flying through time. But I see people putting on Twitter. So obviously, Animal Crossing is massive at the minute. I can see I see girls especially on Twitter putting a wish list of items that they want that like in their Animal Crossing house. Like, and I'm just like, I've never seen any of these things. Like, how are they? I can't.
It's best when you get the weird items. But anyway, we'll move on move away from Animal Crossing again. Your request. And then we'll kind of come back to chatting about kind of games that can keep you sane through this, because Animal Crossing I think can keep people sane whilst in isolation, but also maybe just exacerbating that nightmare feel because of it's also kind of based on routine. I don't know, Jade, did you have any games that you think are really good at keeping people sharp?
So, I'm quite a bad person to ask this because a lot of people, especially because I stream, a lot of people expect me to play games like FPS or Battle Royale or basically any co-op. I've got incredible only child syndrome. I won't even share a game. Like, I play on my own. That's my whole thing. So I don't know many sort of multiplayer ones where you could sort of get a conversation going. But if you're like me and you kind of really sort of just enjoy your downtime, I find things like No Man's Sky very good because you can explore everything and you can collect stuff and like look after you. Any game that's a survival game, because then it's all on you and you kind of go out and you take responsibility for the whole like world that you're living in and you gather your resources and you make all the stuff and it's great. I'm just thinking, it's quite funny actually. We actually borrowed some old board games from my partner's mum, and we ended up with Trivial Pursuit, which everybody knows Trivial Pursuit. It was from, I think it was 1982.
Oh, that is the Genus 2 edition. That's my personal favourite.
Are you kidding?
Genuinely, yeah. Genus 2. I'm pretty sure it's Genus 2.
Honest to God, yeah. And we put all this out, and I was like, well, my partner's slightly older than me by about 7 years or so. Even still, we were just kind of like, and he'd be like, which popular artist did such and such? And we were just like, and then we turn it over and it'd be like, I've literally never, ever heard of this person.
It's so hard.
Stuff like that's kind of cool, like if you've got someone in the house with you, but in terms of if you are properly on your own, and if you like me, because I think I'm one of the, I'm in the minority. I do a lot of stuff by myself. Anything where you can just create your own universe is essential right now, because you just get so absorbed in it, and it's one of those things where you wake up and it's the first thing you kind of think about. You're like, right, well, here's my virtual to-do list of all the things I have to do for this other world that I now exist in, and it's great. It doesn't take up hours in a wasty way. You're super like involved, and you care a bit, and that's my whole kind of thing. So very into that.
For sure. I think that whole kind of the exploration kind of aspect of No Man's Sky is just so. It makes you feel like you're outside, like because you can just kind of go anywhere. And that openness and that kind of ease of movement around the world as well. I know actually No Man's Sky can get a bit
beautiful
tricky,
as well.
That super helps. I said I bought Assassin's Creed Odyssey last week, and that game as well. It's just got a stupidly large open world, but it helps making me feel outside in a way, and just kind of it's freeing, just having this big open space where I can just go anywhere. I don't feel restricted at all.
Mass Effect as well, like all the spacey types of games. In fact, I've spent more time while we've been in lockdown revisiting old games than I have playing new games, because you get that lovely little buzz of nostalgia going, and you can play through it all again. And there's a lot of times where if you are playing something on an old console, there wasn't an online play, so it was stuff that you would play by yourself in your bedroom, and it's those sort of memories, sort of like on the end of your bed, or sort of like maybe one of those 90s inflatable chairs where you're kind of just chilling, and you can, like, games like Croc. I remember Croc really vividly for some reason. But yeah, just you can bring all that stuff back, and it just gives you a nice like rush of warmness, maybe in a time where you're kind of not feeling 100%. So it's been very good.
I need to get. So I haven't got it yet, but I do need to buy the Final Fantasy VII remake. And I think it might give me that feel as well, because it's such a nostalgic game for me. I go back to Final Fantasy VII all the time, to just kind of just be in that world. So maybe the remake could do it, but
yeah, I mean, it looks amazing.
It's a hook for your brain, isn't it? Like nostalgia.
It really is. Yeah, I've been playing the Baldur's Gate games again. That is my brain hug right there. Even though I'm just like, even though I'm just terrible at them, they're a system I don't understand, and it's like I always end up doing the first like 2 hours of it and then failing, or just kind of getting stuck, or just not going back to it. For some reason, the openings of those games just make me feel really like, I think it was in my childhood, as a kid, that's what kind of triggered and tweaked the strings that would eventually need D&D playing them, right? Yeah. That kind of like, there's this amazing enormous world out there for you to explore, and that kind of quest hook, and that sort of like, you're making your own character, but there's all this stuff going on everywhere you look, is very, very important, I think, to my kind of nostalgia. That kind of, I think now would be a great time to start playing Breath of the Wild if you haven't already.
I was gonna say that as well. Just it's only because, sorry, Matt, it's the way it kind of goes from, so sort of, you're kind of stuck in a universe like in the older Zeldas, because you obviously, like you were saying before about you wanting to always go further than the map. You can see things in the distance that you can't quite reach. Now you can get there. You can run. You can see something. You can go to it if you wanna. Like, it's great.
And you just climb straight up. Like, you can go at a straight line if you want to.
So. Unless it's raining. Ugh.
Oh yeah. Nobody likes the rain, and I'm pretty sure that game has that game engine just loves to just kind of make it rain as soon as you walk up to a cliff.
Oh, it does. 100%.
It's got a spite subroutine in there somewhere.
I'm trying to keep watching on the chat as well. And Richards has put on the chat that Astroneer is another really good game.
Great game.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Very kind of casual, but good multiplayer as well, I think.
Yeah, great multiplayer. Well, okay, so good fun multiplayer.
Okay.
The game itself can sometimes struggle. I think they've made that a lot better in recent patches, actually. Mm-hmm. I last played it maybe 3 or 4 months ago, maybe more, actually. But it can start chunking. It can really start with that much deformable terrain, right? Like it's not like Minecraft and even Minecraft is very intensive, right? Because it's got so many blocks. Mm-hmm. Well, this is, like these rough polygonal kind of individually deformable pieces of terrain with objects buried within them. It's a very
nightmare.
Exactly. Yeah. And trying to translate that to a multiplayer thing, trying to send all that information via the internet is, I am by no means an expert on the technical side of video games, but even I can see that is going to be, especially if like people are on different planets.
Mm-hmm.
Because you build a rocket in this game and then you go to the flipping moon and like you're on the moon and I'm down here on Earth and nothing is working here on Earth because you're hosting and the game wants to host the moon and my game is going, but what about Earth?
So we're saying kind of you have to do the opposite of social distancing if you want to play this game. You need to actually like socially, I don't know what the opposite of distancing is, but you have to be basically be next to each other for it to work properly, right?
Yeah. I don't want this to come up. I don't want this to come up like I'm giving this game like too much stick. It's an amazing game. I've had a really great time with it, blasting off to different worlds and digging up discovering things. There's a lot of discovery in that game. Good grief. But I love that kind of thing. The one thing I want to say to keep you sharp, if you're looking for something to get into, and I know we're being fairly Switch heavy right now, but get yourself into Mario Maker if you haven't already, because if we're talking about stuff that's going to keep you sharp, not just necessarily like happy, but sharp, right? If you're trying to I have 2 pieces of advice for that. The first is play a lot of small games or play a lot of games a little, right? Familiarize yourself with as many different game languages as possible, right? Just learn the language of this game, understand it, 5 hours later, 4 hours later, go, okay, I think I get that. I'll come back to that in a minute. Or better yet, choose a 5-hour long game. Why not? Right? Like experience that thing and then move on. Because I've often found, and what I found is that me and my partner have been playing Near and Far, which is a lovely little board game, kind of a worker placement but adventure book, choose your own adventure style thing. It's great. We brought it home from the treehouse just before we closed, and it's beautiful, but neither of us knew how to play it. And I think the single most engaged and focused I have been during this entire time is trying to learn that game. Is looking through that thing. And obviously it's a board game, so nothing's being done for you. So you've just got to make sure that you know how it works. Otherwise it won't work. And a big part of that, I think, is why I'm recommending Mario Maker. Because Mario Maker is great because people are making all these amazing games. And all these amazing levels. And what I've got to say is that some of those best levels, I would say, are way, way harder, but better than some of the Mario, like original Mario levels, right? Some of the professional Mario levels. To the point where they are kind of creating new pieces of like what they call technology, right? Is that sort of like, we put this kind of we put this enemy on top of this enemy, and what that does is it flings that enemy up in the air so that you have to bounce on the enemy that's flung and then kind of carry on moving all over the place, right?
It's a totally new mechanic, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. They are creating bits of that sort of stuff, and then you can do that, but only your friends are going to be able to know the solution to that level, right? Mm-hmm. The key there is teaching a new player how to access that piece of technology, how to solve that. And so that is just like game design, right? If you have an enemy, if you have a jump that you can only actually get to by spin jumping on that, and then that'll bounce you onto another enemy that will allow you to bounce onto like a cannonball that's flying through the air, you have to sort of understand that process. If the level requires you to jump on an enemy, pick up a shell, and then whilst in mid-flight, throw the shell to hit a switch so that you'll land on something solid, that requires teaching. And what I've seen in the Mario Maker community is just this phenomenal level of understanding of that. You know, obviously you can have Jim's good level. My first level lol, and it's like 7 Bowsers all falling from the sky, and you've just got to stand in a specific place. You have the bad stuff, right? But also, you have these like really popular ones that are like between really easy and really, really difficult, like 8 hours to complete difficult. And it does sort of like it's quite interesting to see that process, right? And I think getting into something like that is the same as kind of teaching yourself to play a new board game. You are engaging with a new set of tools, and I think that'll you know if you get in on that, like you got to come out of this quarantine with a bit more knowledge about game design. Never mind anything else.
For sure, one of the kind of the things we talk about a lot at the museum is this idea of kind of game literacy, right? Which is this kind of a way of people kind of and you know, if I was going to use the term gamers, okay, we kind of understand games and we understand a lot of game mechanics. You know, we can use 2 analog sticks, for example, to look and move at the same time, or we can, you know, understand what an open world is. We understand what FPS means in both different terms, frames per second and first-person shooter, right? We're game literate. Vast majority of the public kind of aren't game literate in a way. So one of the things we want to do at the museum is to kind of push this idea of game literacy, of people being able to kind of understand different concepts within games. That's why the museum has different exhibits based around bonus levels in games, because that is this game concept that is just kind of throws in a something different, like beating up a car in Street Fighter 2, you know, and that's it. But it's all about kind of, you know, teaching the public and educating the public about how broad the video game medium is and can be. So yeah, I feel like what you're kind of touching upon there is this idea of game literacy and helping other people with Mario literacy in particular. So yeah,
it's phenomenal. Yeah, like teaching. Like I don't know why that hit so hard with me discovering that. I think it was just the fact that I wasn't quite ready to see. It's a Nintendo game, right? It's supposed to be this really easily accessible thing, but I wasn't quite anticipating just how complex people were going to make it, and then also create their own learning curve. That's a professional game designer's job.
Well, you see, so Tom's actually put in the chat actually, and I think this could potentially one up Mario Maker. Is that Dreams on PS4 came out 2 months ago, which is pretty much a game design game.
Yes.
And you know, people have. Well, I remember we had a chat with we had David Dino, who works at Sumo now. He's from the US, and he works at Sumo, and he gave a chat at the MVM as part of a Game Republic meeting about kind of game jams and kind of how all the internal game jams they do at Sumo, right? And David actually got his job at Sumo by making really good Little Big Planet levels. Like that was
so cool.
He loved the game and he made levels and they were just fantastic. And like, you know, this is on Little Big Planet 3, which Sumo developed. And they basically saw him and went, this guy's a really good game designer, like making stuff in game. So let's just tap him up and basically send him an email and saying like, do you want to work for us? Because we've seen how good you are at Little Big Planet.
That is a dream, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And now he moved all the way from, I'm pretty sure he lived in California before. He moved all the way from California to Sheffield to, God knows why. But now he works at Sumo and he's loving it. He's loving it. He's been here for a few years.
that's
So,
good.
so yeah.
That's amazing. That's really, really cool.
Cool. Right. Well, I think actually it's 8:00. So we may, I know we've been chatting for an hour.
Heck.
And we've spoken about kind of games to keep you sharp. I know, Matt, you wanted to chat about some other stuff that's kind of going on because we didn't actually talk about what's going on in Sheffield. There's a few
true.
bits we need to kind of update people on. I know you wanted to chat about a Treehouse fundraiser. Is that right?
I do indeed, yes. I want to talk about the Treehouse Board Game Cafe Food Bank fundraiser. We what's happened at the Treehouse is over the past 3 weeks, our head chef Rich has been working really, really hard to try and figure out how to help the situation, right? From ideas of like, packed lunches for kind of NHS workers and all sorts to how can we use this kitchen to make things better for the people in Sheffield, right? But the fact is that there's so many logistical problems to setting something up within a crisis like this that we just thought, well, I keep taking credit for these things when they're nothing to do with me. They were like, we should basically help the people who are already doing this, right? So we're just throwing creative clout, not creative clout, but the kind of clout, the social media clout that we have behind other food banks in Sheffield. And so we're on chuffed.org. And it's the Treehouse Food Bank fundraiser. It's chuff.org/project/treehouse-food-bank-fundraiser. I'm sure there's cooler links there, but you could probably just search us on chuff.org and you'll find us. Or you can go to Treehouse social media and find it there.
Sorry, I'm going to try. I was trying to put it on the stream, but I made it really big and it didn't.
But yes, we're just raising money, and basically the way it's going to work is that find it. There we go. The first 300 quid is going to go to Shipshape Health and Wellbeing Centre, and then after that, when we make another 300 quid, that's going to the S2 Food Bank. Then another 300 is going to Gleadless Valley Food Bank, and we are going to keep going until we run out of food banks in Sheffield that we know of. And if we do, we'll find more food banks or start again at the beginning of the list. So we really need your support over there. So we're at £330 right now. We could do with your help just bumping that up. And seeing how much money we can raise for those food banks, because it would be amazing to just kind of get that out there and contribute to that.
Yeah, awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That's super cool. Jade, I think you also did some fundraising earlier this week, did you not?
I might have done.
Do you mind telling us a bit about that?
Sure. If you're referring to the Saturday that has just passed.
I am. That's exactly what I'm referring to, yes.
Okay, yeah, so we did a 12-hour, well, technically slightly longer, fundraiser for the NVM. We had a few of our guys streaming from Ember. If you've not been to Ember before, it's emberapp.gg. Load of great guys on there. It's a massive community full of beauties. We all sort of got together. These are people that haven't necessarily met each other in real life, by the way. We all sorted this thing out, and we put on streams at the weekend. My stream was not the worst. Yes, it was. Anyhow, we managed to get everybody together. We were streaming for a couple of hours apiece. And honestly, I can't remember the total we came out with, but I know that it was over 100% of what we wanted.
It was. So you set a target of £250 and you made £355. So you smashed it.
Oh, that's nice.
And that was with Just Giving breaking. So Just Giving actually broke for 4 hours throughout the stream.
During my stream, where I'm sure everybody wanted to donate. Watching me struggle on Animal Crossing.
Well, no, that was great.
No.
That was great.
It was lovely, and obviously the more we can do to help you guys, the better, because obviously we are basically brothers and sisters in this, so really glad to have helped.
Ace. Another kind of, as an attempt to wrap up, another kind of update I have from last week is that it is definitely the Extra Life Gaming Lounge, not cafe. We said cafe, but we weren't sure if it was cafe or lounge, but it is lounge. And they are still streaming as well. I know Mike's over there still streaming.
It's Press Start are the cafe, aren't they?
Yes.
Extra Life is the lounge.
The lounge, yes. So
it's in.
Had to be sure about that. But cool. So I will kind of wrap up now. As we mentioned earlier, the Sheffield Gaming Podcast and the Games Collective as well is this kind of blossoming new little community that kind of wants to reach out virtually across Sheffield, because we are not going outside, we are staying at home. But we kind of want to hear as many different voices as possible. So if you do kind of live games, love games, live nearby, live in Sheffield, please do kind of get in touch and share this with as many people as you know. It'd be really cool to kind of get some sort of community around here. This podcast is going to be a weekly affair now. So we're going to be here every Friday at 7 p.m. Next week we'll change kind of what things we want to talk about, but I think it might be cool to talk about games that could keep you physically active as well. Not to keep your mental health in check, but also making sure you don't lose all your muscles or put on too much weight. I'm eating so much chocolate. I'm eating so bad.
Why is it happening over Easter?
I know.
It could be worse. It could have happened over Christmas.
I don't know.
Oh, wow. That would have been catastrophic for my waistline. So you can catch our podcast directly over on Twitter at Sheffield Gaming. Just says at Sheffield Gaming. I've not got that on the stream. Jade, where can people find you online on the internet?
You can mostly find me at emberapp.gg. That's my Ember profile. If you want to follow me personally, it's on Twitter at the Knox Bear, which you can see right there.
Yep. And Matt?
I am Matt Speaks Words on Twitter, which, yes. That's the thing. But also, if you want to hear some more hours of me talking, but, with other people, and, it's not all me, is you can go to find my podcast at Life's a Pitch Podcast, which we pitch movies that will never get made based on titles suggested by our audience. This week, in fact, today we released an episode, a Disney episode where we pitched Raccoon Express, which is a Pixar movie in which raccoons pretend to be an Amazon delivery driver. And it is, you should go and check that out. That is at soundcloud.com/Life's a Pitch Podcast, or, go to facebook.com and it's Life's a Pitch Podcast, or at Life's a Pitch Show on Twitter. Go and check us out there. We would really appreciate those listens, and chuck us a couple of titles while you're there. That's we asked that of our audience, and if you've ever thought, oh, that'd be a good name for a film, just shove it in the old comments there.
It's not Raccoon Express is not a spiritual sequel to Pineapple Express, is it? They weren't really high delivery drivers, Amazon delivery drivers.
No, they weren't. But you'll feel like you're really high when you find out the conclusion to this film. It goes wild.
Amazing. Awesome. And then me personally, I will be found right there on Chrono Cleon. That's my Twitter. And I'll be doing stuff for the National Video Game Museum as well, Monday to Friday. So all those channels as well, they're all me. But yeah, thank you so much, Jay. Thank you so much, Matt. And thank you so much, everyone in the chat. Richard, Tom, Leah, you're all brilliant. Subject 1704, which I'm not. We need to find a better name for you, Subject. Awesome. We shall see you all next week. Bye.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.